channel. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to retape your aerial hoop or lyra. The reason why you want to retape your hoop is, especially if you have white tape, you can start to see that it's turning brown, which is pretty gross. But over time, it's just going to end up a little bit dirty. And so you'll want to retape it, or it gets really smooth over time. So then you want to retape it. And there's a couple ways you can remove the tape. One is the slow and tedious process of unraveling it slowly. Or you can take a razor blade and go ahead and just cut through the tape carefully, which is fine. It might scratch the hoop a tiny bit, but it's okay. I actually got the okay, this isn't my hoop, but I got the okay from my friends to go ahead and use a blade against their nice, beautiful new hoop. But after realizing that this is a nicely painted or coated hoop, I'm gonna not use the razor blade, unfortunately. But if you do use the razor blade, you just wanna cut down all the way around the hoop with the blade, and then you can just kind of peel the tape away, and it's this like nice shell of tape that'll just peel right off. It's a bit of work, but a lot less work than unraveling the tape. And if the tape is older, unraveling it is probably going to be a little bit harder, as the tape is kind of hardened and gotten old, so then it's going to just kind of crack. The reason I'm retaping this hoop is not because the tape is old. Actually, it's like a month old or so, but the tape was actually taped going in one direction all the way around the hoop. And that's fine for one side. When you slide your hands down the hoop, one side is nice and smooth. But on the other side, however, now when you slide your hands down to drop into some pose at the bottom of the hoop or something, now your hand is going against the grain and it doesn't feel too great. And it can also ruin your pants, which is not so nice. So I'm just gonna retape this for my friends, and the way I'm going to do it is, if this is a clock, we're gonna tape from 6 o'clock and we're gonna go all the way up to 12, and then again 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And that way, when we slide down, we're gonna be going with the grain of the tape, and it's gonna feel a lot nicer. So there are actually two ways that you can tape your hoop. One, which I'm going to do with this hoop, is going from the 6 o'clock to the 12 o'clock position. And the other way is to go 5 o'clock through 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Cheating, I'm looking at my clock. Or go from like 7 o'clock through 6 o'clock and then back up to 12. And that way you have a little bit of an overlap at the bottom. That's one way to do it, but for this one, I'm going to just stick to a little past 6 o'clock and up in both directions. Two reasons for that is when you are sliding your hands down to the bottom, if you start the tape a little bit too far past the 6 o'clock position, then you're going to still end up with this issue of sliding against the grain. So that's one reason I decided against that for this hoop. And the other reason is that I am taping with Prodigy Snake Tape, premium aerial tape. And this is 14 meters long and 3.8 centimeters wide, or 15 yards long and 1.5 inches wide. So on the website they say that this is definitely enough tape for a normal size hoop, yada yada. But if you haven't seen my other video, I tape a double tab hoop. And even with the double tab, and that hoop is a tiny bit larger, but even with that double tab, in which I had to skip taping over the tab areas where you raise your hardware, I ended up running out of tape. And with that one, I did a bit of an overlap. So the tape does tell you to do the 6 to 12 o'clock taping. I'm definitely going to do the 6 to 12 taping with this hoop, so I don't run out of tape, hopefully. So now let's talk about this residue that's going to be left behind on the hoop from the old tape. There are products out there that can help you remove that residue and make it nice and smooth and clean for your next set of tape. However, that's not really necessary. Just get rid of any big chunks that might be left on the hoop. like big bumpy chunks, the residue is so low profile it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously if you're trying to go from a tape tube to an untaped tube, go for it, definitely remove that residue. That would be really uncomfortable to remove the residue. Alright, so now that I've finished removing the tape, I'm going to take a look at it, inspect it, and get rid of any little strings that might be left over, any chunks that might cause the tape to be a little bit lumpy when I retape it. And if you have an older hoop, this is also a good time to inspect your hoop. Check it out, make sure there's no cracks or deformations or anything in it. So here are the holes my friend was talking about. I'm going to put those at the 12 o'clock position when I retape. Alright, so if this is my 12 o'clock position, straight on down is going to be my 6 o'clock position, and that's where I'm going to start the taping. And I'm going to tape from the bottom up. And again, that's to make sure that when I slide my hands down the hoop, I'm going with the grain of the tape, and I won't go all the way down. So when I tape, I'm just going to, with every wrap, I want to kind of find the halfway point of the previous wrap of tape and have the new end meet that middle point, and then keep wrapping around, finding that half point all the time. You'll start to see the bump from the previous layer of tape, and you want to match up with that, and that way you kind of have this double layer of tape essentially. So you want those two ends to kind of meet. So I'm actually going to start just a tiny bit past the 6 o'clock position. That way when I come with the second side, then there won't be like this little gap, or so it'll just be a tiny overlap. So you want to start it at a tiny bit of an angle. So go nice and slow, finding that halfway point, meeting the tape, making sure you're not creating any creases as you're taping. And as I'm going along, I'm also kind of making sure the old residue hasn't picked up something from the ground or floor on the way up. Now to finish up one half of it, I'm just going to do a couple of passes perpendicular. The tape, although I was going at an angle, the tape is pretty flexible and stretchy so that you can kind of direct it to go perpendicular instead of continuing at the angle now. So just a couple passes. And we'll just cut that right off. Like that. And then just kind of make sure it's all nice. So now for the other side, I'm going to do a couple of perpendicular passes first before I start pushing the tape to spiral around. So again, starting from the 6 o'clock position, but this is going to just overlap a little bit since I started the first side a little bit past 6 o'clock. So I've got my little holes marking my 12 o'clock. So did one perpendicular pass, and now I'm going to push that tape to start going at an angle. And now I'm going to start meeting the tape in that halfway point as I overlap it. So this is when you start to get nervous. Your tape roll's getting pretty small, but you know you still have a bit more of your hoop to do. If it does make you really nervous, or if you have multiple hoops to tape, There are bigger rolls of tape that you can buy rather than just like this tape that's meant for a single hoop. But the issue with that is then you're gonna have this big roll that you have to keep passing around the hoop, which could get a bit tiring. So here I'm getting to the end again. And again, I'm just gonna do a couple of perpendicular passes. I'm gonna leave these holes open just in case anybody wants to use them in the future. We're going to just run our hands down the tape, make sure it's nicely on there. Now when you first use your hoop with new tape, it's gonna feel a little bit sticky just because of the residue kind of coming out the edges of the tape. But over time it'll get a lot smoother and a lot nicer to use. And you know, as you're running your hands down while you're training, it's gonna get a lot smoother. So just know that it's gonna feel a little bit different at first, but it'll be fine. And there you have it, your newly taped hoop. I hope this helps. And if you like this video and you want to see more content on rigging, on aerial tricks, be sure to like and subscribe. I think I'm gonna make it. I'm not making it. That is a big gap. So because there is such a large gap left, it wasn't just going to be covered by the span set being choked around the hoop. I am carefully undoing the tape I just did on one half so that I can reuse it again. And instead of getting the tape to nicely overlap with that halfway point, I'm going to stretch it out a little bit, so you're going to see a little bit of a gap, but it'll be fine. It's snowing. Again, in the middle of April. Start new. Maybe not. I hope the aerial business industries don't come after me for telling people not to buy that residue remover. The bump from the previous, let's see, anything else?